provide each member an opportunity who wishes to speak the matter the opportunity to do so. The committee will then ask the applicant, members of the public, or town staff to answer any questions that they may have with respect to the application being heard. Before closing the public portion of the meeting, the recording secretary will ask if there's any further questions from the attendees. I will then ask the committee members if they have any further questions. The committee will then render a decision by either granting the application with conditions, reserving its decision, refusing, denying the application as submitted, or deferring the application to another public meeting. If you are here in person or online, it's important that you provide the name and address if you have an interest in this matter. So if you plan on speaking to the committee at this meeting, or you wish to receive a copy of the decision, you must provide your name and address to the Secretary Treasurer. Under the Planning Act, any person or public body may appeal the decision. The appeal period for the minor variance is 20 days from the date of decision and 20 days from the day of mailing the notice of decision for consents. The deadlines for each of these applications will be provided in the notice of decision. The applicant, prior to the committee rendering its decision, may wish to have their application deferred to another scheduled meeting. Such request will be at the sole discretion of the committee. The public meeting is being recorded and live streamed, so therefore your name and address and other personal information are being recorded in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And this will also help our recording secretary prepare an accurate minutes. So, can you hear me online? Oh, okay.
Recording in progress.
So the next is a disclosure of any pecuniary interest. Do any of the members here today have any wish to disclose any pecuniary interest? Okay, I don't see any. So if you do obviously have a pecuniary interest in any of the matters that are before us today, make sure you remove yourself from the room if and when it comes up in discussion. Adoption of the minutes. So adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on February and March. So do any of the committee members have any issues or concerns with the minutes? Nope, seeing none. So I'll just ask for the vote that the Committee of Adjustment consent adopt the minutes of the February 15th, 2023 meeting, as well as the March 15th, 2023 meeting. All in favor? And that is carried. Mover and seconder. Do I have mover? Harold, seconded by Andy. Thank you. So now we're going to get into the actual applications. So the first application being heard today, and there are two related applications. So it's a minor variance and consent. We're just going to read the one, but we will vote on each matter separately. So this is application A05, and this is for 8 and 12 Bayview Avenue. Lot 35 and 36. So this that's for the minor variance. And the second one is B0423, same address, 8 and 12 Bayview Avenue, lot 35 and 36, and that is for consent. So I will get the Secretary to read the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. So application B0423 and A0523, municipally addressed as 8 Bayview Avenue and 12 Bayview Ave. So application B0423 proposes the lot line boundary adjustment / lot addition. The portion of the subject lands proposed to be severed, shown as part 2 on the severance sketch, has a frontage of approximately 0 meters, 46.98 feet, and a depth of approximately 90.22 feet, and an area of approximately 51.6 square meters. The portion of the subject lands proposed to be the benefiting enhanced parcels, shown on part 3 on the severance sketch, has an existing frontage of 15.24 meters and a depth of 30.48 meters, and an area of approximately 464.5 square meters. The portion of the property to be retained, shown as part 1 on the severance sketch, has a frontage of approximately 15.24 meters and an average depth of approximately 30.48 meters and an area of approximately 413 square meters. A0523. The application for minor variance A0523 includes one minor variance request for each of the subject properties as follows. 12 Bayview Avenue, relief from Section 4, Residential Type 1 of Zoning Bylaw 2003-60, as amended specifically. Section 4.3.5 to decrease the minimum required interior yard setback from 1.8 meters to 1.2 meters along the western lot line. And 8 Bayview Avenue, specifically requests relief from Section 4.3.1 to decrease the minimum required lot area from 464.5 square meters to 413 square meters. Public Works is not has no objections to the application, and the NVCA has no objections to the application. And recommendation is for B0423 so the planning department supports the application subject to the following conditions being applied: that the applicant provides a deposited reference plan, said reference plan to show all of the parcel to be severed and merged, that the applicant provide a draft legal description to be included in the certificate of consent, and that all conditions of this be fulfilled and the documents presented to the planning department for issuance of certificate of consent within a period not exceeding 24 months from the date of decision. Recommendation for A0523, the planning department supports this application subject to the following conditions being applied: that the development be substantially consistent with the site plan and building design drawings provided with the application submission. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you. So is the John Konrad here? If you'd just like to come forward, and when you're speaking at the mic, there is a button that you press to turn it on, and when you're not speaking, just make sure you shut it off. This is your opportunity to present any information that you have in regards to these applications being considered today.
Okay, we own 8 Bayview Avenue and 12 Bayview Avenue. They're two separate building lots two separate lots according to the plan of subdivision. When we bought them, there was no survey available. We bought them just at the end of the year, or beginning of this year. When we did a survey, we found out that, first of all, 12 has a house on it, 8 is an empty lot. When we did the survey, we found out that the corner of the house on 12 encroaches onto number 8. And so we're just asking for the lot line to be adjusted so that we have two clean properties, that one has a house, one is an empty building lot. That's basically, in a nutshell, what we're asking.
Perfect, thank you very much. And if you just wouldn't mind just shutting off the mic, thank you. So do we have anyone here from the public that wishes to speak to these applications online or in person? Perfect. Okay, do any of the committee members have any questions of Mr. Konrad? Go ahead, Andy.
These two lots, the existing house, this is the lot to the left of the existing house. Now, do you also own the lot to the right of the existing house?
No, we do not.
So it's just these two lots? Great, thank you.
Okay, I do not see any further, anyone else wishing to speak to this matter. I don't have any questions personally, so we will close the public portion of the meeting. And I guess I guess we should be voting on the consent first. Is that, would that be correct?
Through you, Chair, actually the first application on the agenda today is A0523, so I think we should vote on the minor variance first and then the consent.
Okay. So the first application being considered is that minor variance, and the recommendations being put forward by planning staff is that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from John Konrad. So do I have a mover? Harold, seconded by Andy. All in favor? And that is passed. So the next application is the consent, and that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from John Konrad for the consent. Do I have a mover? Leo, seconded by and all in favor, and that is carried. And you're done, I believe, with the two applications. Unless you want to stick around, you're free to go. Thanks a lot. Take care. All right. So the next application, and I think most of them are for Rod, and I think he's here today. So perfect. So the first one, and I'm assuming it's the same thing, that we're going to speak to the two together. Is that correct, Christy?
Sorry, yes, that's correct.
All right, so application number 3B0523, this is for Joanne Crescent, lot 55, and it's a consent. Sorry.
And B06, Chair.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. B06, and also for a consent for lot 55 as well. And I will turn it over to Christy to read in the application.
Thank you. So Plan 1700, Lot 55, the application submitted by Rodney Reynolds on behalf of John J. Donato Limited, owner of the subject lands, provided as parts 13 to 16 as shown on B06 23 and B05 23. Existing land sketch applications B05 23 and B06 23 both propose to create one residential building lot for a total of 3 lots. And the portion of the property proposed to be severed as shown on B0523 severance sketch provided as part 13 and part 14 has a frontage of approximately 28.95 meters along Ramblewood Drive and a depth of approximately 18.41 meters along Joanne Crescent and an area of approximately 505 square meters. The portion of the property to be retained as shown on B0523 severance sketch provided as part 15 and part 16 has a frontage of approximately 6 meters along Joanne Crescent, and a depth of approximately 30.22 meters, and an area of approximately 862 square meters. BO6, the portion of the property proposed to be severed, as shown on BO6 23 severance sketch provided as Part 15, has a frontage of approximately 14.80 meters along Joanne Crescent, and a depth of approximately 30.32 meters, and an area of approximately 427 square meters. The portion of the property to be retained, as shown on BO6 23 severance sketch provided as Part 16, has a frontage of approximately 14.8 meters along Joanne Crescent, and a depth of approximately 30.32 meters, and an area of approximately 434 square meters. Public Works does not oppose the applicant's request. The NWDI Wasag Distribution Inc. has reviewed the proposal and have no objections. The NVCA's comments, so they do not oppose the application. They did say, though, at the time of writing, the MVCA fees for review have not been paid. We respectfully ask that the outstanding fees of $2,247 be paid as a condition of approval. And the recommendation. In consideration of the proposed consent for new lot creation, the Planning Department supports the application BO 523 and recommends that the committee approve the application subject to the following conditions. That 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution be based upon an appraisal prepared by an individual who is a member of the Appraisal Institute, AIC. Number 2, that the applicant provides a deposited reference plan, said reference plan to show all of the parcel to be severed. That the daylight triangle, number 3, that the daylight triangle, Part 13, be dedicated to the Town of Wasag Beach as a condition for consent to sever. Number 4, that the applicant obtain the necessary MVCA permit approvals to provide confirmation to the satisfaction of the Town of Wasag Beach if applicable. Number 5, that all conditions of the decision be fulfilled and that the documents presented to the Planning Department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision. And in consideration of the proposed consent for a new lot creation, the Planning Department supports application BO 623 and recommends that the committee approve the application subject to the following conditions. That 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution will be based upon an appraisal prepared by an individual who is a member of the Appraisal Institute of Canada, AIC. Number 2, that the applicant provides a deposited reference plan, said reference plan to show all of the parcels to be severed. Number 3, that the applicant receive approval for minor variance applications to address the deficient lot areas for proposed Part 15 and Part 16, and that said minor variances are final and binding. Number 4, that consent application B0523 is approved. Number 5, that the applicant obtain the necessary MVCA permit and approvals and provide confirmation to the satisfaction of the Town of Wasag Beach if applicable. And number 6, that all conditions of this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the Planning Department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision. And I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Christy. Rod, if you have anything to add to the application and both applications, sorry. Hey, Christy.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Your staff have done a fine job of researching this project. There's a few little things they missed. In 1975, the registrar prepared a compiled plan of this area because it was very poorly divided and difficult for the registry to handle. The plan shows about 50 lots, roughly 100 feet wide and 150 feet deep. Very few of them are left in that state, just because in 50 years' time, the cost of land and housing has changed so dramatically. This area in particular is the last one to be developed because of the nearby creek. A couple years ago, Donato Construction built the berm, and it's now allowed this area to be developed. We're now in a stage where everybody wants to build the biggest house on the smallest lot. So that's why we're here today. We have an opportunity to build 6 lots or 6 houses on these 2 lots, or this 1 lot, and eventually we get all the rest of them. The exception here we have is that the 2 lots are slightly undersized. The way it's designed is that we've got 48 feet of frontage, and if you look at a house that's built on a 40-foot wide lot, 28 feet wide, it looks skinny, narrow, and crowded, whereas this house, this property is 48 feet wide. The area that's missing is really at the back of the lot, 7 feet, and from the curb, you'll never be able to tell that it's an undersized lot. That's about all I can say.
Thank you, Rod. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to these matters today?
No.
Perfect. I will then ask the committee members if they have any questions of Rod. Okay, seeing no questions, I will close the public portion of the meeting and call the vote for the first application number 3B0523, Joanne Crescent, Lot 55, and its consent that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Rod Reynolds. Do I have a mover? Andy, and seconded by Harold. All in favor? And that is carried. So application number 4, B0623, same lot, 55. Again, it's a consent so that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the application from Rod Reynolds. And do I have a mover? Leo, seconded by Andy. All in favor? And that is carried. So that concludes matters for Lot 55, but I think you have a few more here. So application number 5 and 6, again, will be read together. I think they're both to do with Lot 58. And just so you know, we did hear that this was, Joanne Crescent was going to be here shortly, so here we are today. So I will pass over to Christy and she'll read in the application. Thank you.
And so application number 5, which is B0723, and application number 6, B0823, plan 1700 lot 58. An application has been submitted by Rodney Reynolds on behalf of J. Donato Limited, owner of the subject lands, provided as parts 9 to 12 on B0723 and B0823 existing land sketch. Applications B0723 and B0823 both propose to create one residential building lot for a total of three lots. B0723, the portion of the property proposed to be severed as shown on B0723 severance sketch provided as Part 9 and Part 10 has a frontage of approximately 28.98 meters along Ramblewood Drive and approximately 17 meters along Joanne Crescent in an area of approximately 500 square meters. The portion of the property proposed to be retained as shown on B07 23 severance sketch provided as Part 11 and Part 12 has a frontage of approximately 28.6 56 meters along Joanne Crescent and a depth of 30.91 meters and an area of approximately 876 square meters. BO 823, the portion of the property proposed to be severed as shown on BO 823 severance sketch, provided as Part 11, has a frontage of approximately 14.33 meters along Joanne Crescent and a depth of 30.91 meters and an area of approximately 432 square meters. The portion of the property to be retained as shown on BO 823 severance sketch provided as Part 12 has a frontage of approximately 14.33 meters along Joanne Crescent and a depth of approximately 30.91 meters and an area of approximately 444 square meters. Comments. So the Public Works Department does not oppose of the applicant's request. The Wasag Distribution Inc. Has reviewed the proposal and has no objections. And the NVCA has asked in their comments, they have no objections to the approval of the applications, but they do ask that at the time of writing, the NVCA fees for review had not been paid. They ask that the outstanding fees of $2,247 be paid as a condition of approval. And the recommendations. So in consideration of the proposed consent for the new lot creation, the Plan Department supports application B0723 and recommends that the committee approve the application subject to the following conditions: that 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution will be based on the appraisal prepared by an individual who is a member of the AIC. Number 2, that the applicant provides a deposit reference plan, said reference plan to show all of the parcel to be severed. Number 3, that the daylight triangle, Part 9, be dedicated to the town of Wasag Beach as a condition for the consent to sever. Number 4, that the applicant obtain the necessary MVCA permit and approvals and provide confirmation to the satisfaction of the town of Wasag Beach if applicable. Number 5, that all conditions of this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the Planning Department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision. And for application BO 823, the Planning Department supports the application and recommends that committee approve the application subject to the following conditions. So that the 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution will be based upon the appraisal prepared by the individual who is a member of the AIC. That the applicant provides a deposit reference plan, said reference plan to show all the parcels severed. That the applicant, number 3, that the applicant receive approval of the minor variance applications to address the deficient lot areas for proposed Part 11 and Part 12, and that said minor variances are final and binding. That consent application B0723 is approved, that the applicant obtain the necessary MVCA permit and approvals and provide confirmation of the satisfaction of the town of Wasag Beach if applicable. And number 6, that all conditions of this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the Planning Department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months of the date of decision. And back to you, Chair.
Thank you, and I'm just going to see if there's anyone from the public that wishes to speak to these applications. No one online either? No. Okay. And then I will ask the committee if they have any questions of the applicant or staff. Okay, I just have a quick question for you, Rod. You've spoken to, and I should have asked this previously, but I forgot, the owner of the property is aware of the conditions on this application?
Yes, they are.
And no concerns with the conditions?
They're standard conditions.
Perfect. So I don't have any further questions other than that. So I will call the vote for the first one, which is application number 5, B0723, Joanne Crescent, lot 58. It's a consent that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Reynolds. Do I have a mover? Andy, seconded by Leo. All in favor? And that is carried. Application number 6, B08, 23, Joanne Crescent, Lot 58 as well, and it's a consent. And that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Reynolds. And do I have a mover? Harold, seconded by Andy. All in favor? And that's carried. So then we're on to application number 7. Again, this is an application for Joanne Crescent, Lot 45. And Rod is also the agent for this. So Christy, if you want to read in the application, thank you.
Yes, so application B0923, Plan 1700, Lot 45. An application has been submitted by Rodney Reynolds on behalf of J. Donato Limited, the owner of the subject lands. The application proposes to create one residential building lot for a total of 2 lots. The portion of the property proposed to be severed, as shown on severance sketch provided as Part 7, has a frontage of approximately 15.21 meters along Joanne Crescent and a depth of approximately 45.74 meters and an area of approximately 696 square meters. The portion of the property proposed to be retained, as shown in the severance sketch provided as Part 8, has a frontage of approximately 15.21 meters along Joanne Crescent and a depth of approximately 45.75 meters and an area of approximately 696 square meters. Comments. Public Works does not oppose the applicant's request. The MVCA only had the one comment and does not oppose, and the comment being that at the time of writing, the comments MVCA fees for the review have not been paid. We respectfully ask that outstanding fees of $2,247 be paid as a condition of approval. Wasag Distribution Inc. has no objection to the proposal, and the recommendation from planning staff is such that the application be approved and subject to the following conditions: that 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution will be based upon appraisal prepared by an individual who is a member of the Appraisal Institute of Canada. That the applicant provides a deposit reference plan, said reference plan to show all of the parcels to be severed. That the applicant obtain the necessary MVCA permit and approvals to provide confirmation to the satisfaction of the Town of Wasag Beach, if applicable. That all conditions of this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the Planning Department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision. And back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any thing to add to this application?
My previous comments look carry.
Noted. Thank you. Do I have any questions of the committee members? None? Okay, that concludes the public portion of the meeting. I will call the vote so that assuming that there's no one online to speak to this. No. So application number 7. What's that? 7? Thanks. B0923, Joanne Crescent, Lot 45, and that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the application from Reynolds. Do I have a mover? Daniel and Leo, seconded. All in favor? That's carried. And application number 8 now. Again, it's a consent for Joanne Crescent, Lot 46, application B1023 for Joanne Crescent. And I will pass it over to the Secretary.
Thank you, Chair. So application B1023, Plan 1700, Lot 46. The application's been submitted by Rodney Reynolds on behalf of John Donato Limited, owner of the subject lands. The application proposes to create one residential building lot for a total of 2 lots. The portion of the the portion of the property proposed to be severed, as shown on the severance sketch provided as Part 5, has a frontage of approximately 21.23 meters along Joanne Crescent, and a depth of approximately 42.3 meters, an area of approximately 738 square meters. The portion of the property proposed to be retained, as shown on the severance sketch provided as Part 6, has a frontage of approximately 19.80 meters and along Joanne Crescent, and a depth of approximately 45.72 meters, and an area approximately 801 square meters. Comments are as follows. Public Works does not oppose the application. The same comment applies from the MVCA, where they're asking that that they get the outstanding fees, $2,247, as paid as a condition of approval, and that and Wasag Distribution Inc. has no objection to the approval. The recommendation for B1023 from planning staff is that it is approved with the following conditions. Number 1, that 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution will be based upon the appraisal prepared by an individual who is a member of the Appraisal Institute of Canada. Number 2, that the applicant provides a deposited reference plan, said reference plan to show all of the parcel to be severed. Number 3, that the applicant obtain the necessary MVCA permit and approvals and provide confirmation to the satisfaction of the Town of Wasag Beach, if applicable. And number 4, that all conditions of this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the Planning Department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision. And back to you, Chair.
Thank you. I will ask anyways.
No further comments?
Thanks. Committee members? No. Seeing none. Close the public portion of the meeting, and I will read in the recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Reynolds, and this is for application number 8B1023 Joanne Crescent, Lot 46. Do I have a mover? Andy, seconded by Harold. All in favor? And that is carried. Number 9. And this is for Joanne Crescent, Lot 50. Reynolds is the applicant.
Okay, so B1123, Plan 1700 and Lot 50. An application has been submitted by Reynolds on behalf of J. Donato Limited, owner of the subject lands. The application proposes to create one residential building lot for a total of 2 lots. The portion of the property proposed to be severed, as shown on severance sketch provided, Part 3, has a frontage of 15.57 meters along Joanne Crescent, a depth of 37.25 meters, and an area of approximately 728 square meters. The portion of the property proposed to be retained as per severance sketch provided as Part 4, as a frontage of approximately 15.57 meters along Joanne Crescent, and a depth of 31.97 meters, and an area of approximately 568 square meters. Public Works Department does not oppose this application. MVCA has asked in their comments that the fee of $2,247 be paid as a condition of approval, and Wasag Distribution does not have any problems with the application. The recommendation from planning staff is to approve the application with the subject to the following conditions: that 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution will be based upon the appraisal prepared by an individual who is a member of the Appraisal Institute of Canada. That the applicant provides a deposit reference plan, said reference plan to show all the parcels to be severed. That the applicant obtain the necessary MVCA permit and approvals and provide confirmation to the satisfaction of the Town of Wasag Beach, if applicable. that all conditions of this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the planning department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision.
Thank you. Same comments as,
I have nothing further to add.
thanks. And no one here for the public wishing to speak to this application? I saw somebody walk in, so I thought maybe they were here for one of these. Sorry, I was talking to you. Anyways, I don't see any further comments. Do committee members have any questions, comments? No? Okay, seeing none, close the public portion of the meeting, and I will call the vote that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Rod Reynolds, application number 9, B1123, Joanne Crescent, lot 50. Do I have a mover? Harold, seconded by Andy. All in favor? And that's carried. I think this is the last one for you. So application number 10, B1223, and I'll pass it over to Christy.
All right, so B1223, Plan 1700, Lot 53. So Rodney Reynolds has submitted an application on behalf of J. Donato Limited, owner of the subject lands. The application proposes to create one residential building lot for a total of 2 lots. The portion of the property proposed to be severed, as shown on severed sketch provided as Part 2, has a frontage of 15.26 meters along Joanne Crescent and a depth of approximately 45.58 meters and an area of approximately 697 square meters. The portion of the property proposed to be retained, as shown on the severance sketch provided as Part 1, has a frontage of approximately 15.26 meters along Joanne Crescent, and a depth of approximately 45.26 meters, and an area of approximately 697 square meters. Public Works does not oppose the application. MVCA would like their fee paid of $2,247 as a condition of approval. I'm sorry, the subject lands are not regulated by the MVCA, and the comments were not received by them. Wasag Distribution, we have reviewed, they have no opposition to the proposal. And the recommendation, in consideration of the proposed consent for new lot, the Planning Department supports application B1223 and recommends that the committee approve the application subject to the following conditions. That 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed. The determination of the parkland contribution will be based upon the appraisal prepared by an individual who is a member of the AIC. Number 2, that the applicant provides a deposit reference plan, said reference plan to show all of the parcel to be severed. And number 3, that all the conditions in this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the Planning Department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision.
Thank you, Christy.
I still have no comments.
Thank you. And I'm assuming no one's here yet. Okay. Committee members, do you have any questions? No? Perfect. Close the public portion of the meeting, and I will ask if I guess I have to read it in, so that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Rod Reynolds, and it's application number 10, B1223, Joanne Crescent, lot 53, for consent. Do I have a mover? Leo, seconded by Daniel. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And the last application for today's Committee of Adjustment hearing is application number 11, A0423. This is for 1048 Mosley Street, and it's for Ron Fleer. And perfect. Perfect.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for attending here in person. So I will get Christy to read in the application being considered, and then I will give you an opportunity to speak to this application.
Okay, so application number 11-80423, and the address is 1048 Mosley Street. The application requests relief from Section 14 Tours Commercial CT Zone, specifically from Section 14.2.1 to permit a dwelling unit on a non-residential building on the first story, whereas a dwelling unit on a non-residential building contained above the first story is permitted. The variance request would facilitate a 20.06 square meter addition to the non-residential building on the first story for residential purposes. Recommendation, in considering the foregoing, the planning department supports application A0423 subject to the following condition being applied: that the development be substantially consistent with the site plan and drawings provided with the application contained within Appendix 1 of the report. And their comments, so on comments from Public Works dated April 19th, 2023, they do not oppose the application, but they did comment that residential size municipal water and sanitary services are currently utilized within the building. So note that any additional stormwater runoff from the addition shall be contained within the subject site and not impact surrounding properties. A grading plan may be required at the discretion of this chief building official. Public Works does not oppose the application. There's no comments from the NVCA's as it's outside the regulation zone, and there was no other comments received from agencies. There was some comments received from some neighbors, so I'll read those into the record now. So on Saturday, April 8th, Rosalba D'Angelo wrote that this is to inform planners of Wasaga Beach of my concerns and why I oppose this proposed variance at 1048 Mosley Street. The subject property is as 1,643 square foot bungalow, single family dwelling unit with a separate front door access to the residence. In addition, there is a self-contained accessory ensuite unit with its own front door access used as a commercial storefront that is currently leased as a licensed business establishment. This proposed variance is incompatible with the existing dwelling unit of the subject property, where abutting neighbors are concerned with the issues of privacy, views, spacing, openness, and trees that would be cut down. This proposed variance does not exhibit a reasonably uniform building period in style or design, scale, or spacing. Number 4, this proposed sensitive redevelopment is considered out of scale, out of character, inappropriate to stabilizing the character of the neighborhood with an insensitive loss of enjoyment, peace, and quality of life from our own properties. Number 5, that the character of this older neighborhood is deserving of protection and preservation that must be a factor considered for the enjoyment of these qualities with accepted planning principles and existing pattern of development. 6, that there are also issues related to limited parking spaces, improper drainage, traffic control measures, and noise nuisances that would create a hindrance to a much needed pedestrian-friendly neighborhood. Number 7, that this would be a loss of privacy to abutting neighbors and obstruction of openness, which would result in mass or density. Number 8, this variance would further intensify this kind of development that speaks to matters of privacy and density, which relates to STRs and STAs with an additional accessory ensuite to the residence. Number 9, this variance is incompatible with the existing dwelling unit because of the size of the property and does not conform to the character of the other immediate R1 residential properties surrounding the subject property, which would not be appropriate for variance approval. Number 10, that the proposed variance would not be desirable for the appropriate development or use of the applicant's land or existing building from a planning and public interest perspective. And it's important to recognize that the subject property has posed a risk to human health since June of 2021, where public nuisances has become persistent, intolerable, and out of control. Number 11, Beach 3 is recognized as an older community, and planners must be more restrictive in a vulnerable area, which is not compatible with surrounding R1 homes in the area, which is already sensitive to the issues such as unwanted noise, traffic, and parking issues of the subject property. Number 12, existing older neighborhoods were dictated by the zoning bylaws existing when the neighborhood was developed, and this proposed variance does not respect the established physical character of the neighborhood or surrounding properties. Number 13, granting this proposed variance for development with additional accessory ensuite would result in a disruptive subsequent increases of high noise levels related to STRs and STAs within the accessory ensuite units. Number 14, the primary issues for abutting residents have raised concerns in the past with previous STRs and STAs which have not complied with the local bylaws or code of conduct, and there's no cap on the amount of municipal business licenses issued to facilitate commercial tourist accommodation. Number 15, Property Standards Committee must consider the extent of excessive noise issues that has already been demonstrated and has negatively impacted neighboring properties in the immediate and general area. Number 16, a proposed variance would approval for the specific building and land use from subject properties must be seriously considered before any decisions for approval is granted in relation to other property owners who are subjected to continuous public nuisances from a subject property. The pitfalls outweigh the upside of a very sensitive land use planning decision. Number 17, the official plan is the overall master plan document for the town where it contains goals, objectives, and policies. Planning Act Section 16, to guide the future land and development. Number 18, this contains elements of the provincial government's intensification policy, including requirement that new development respect the character of the existing neighborhoods. Reference Part 5 of the provincial policy statements. Reference and number 19 in 2016, Smart Growth for Our Communities Act, which came into force and amended the Planning Act to provide additional criteria to conform. I'm also number 20, I'm also requesting a notice of decision on the subject property of 1048 Mosley Street for proposed variance on this particular matter. Thank you, Rose D'Angelo, 1038 Mosley Street. And another comment was from John Curtosi, and I believe John is with us as well. Is he on? Okay. So he wrote in and said that he's been dealing with a persistent concern as a neighbor at 1056 Mosley Street, which I fear may be further exasperated if this variance is allowed. There exists a gate entrance at the side of 1048 property, adjacent to my property, which is 1056 Mosley Street. Despite repeated requests to permanently close it off, it is still in use. That side access can only be utilized by trespassing upon our property, which has repeatedly occurred in the past and continues to occur to this day. I have refrained from installing a fence with the hope that the access would be closed off voluntarily. This is yet to occur. My concern is that by approving this variance, the access will become more of a necessity and further infringe upon our lands. Please call me if more information is required. And that's John Curtosi from 1056 Mosley Street. And I'm just going to see if Rose is here today. Is that Rose? And then I believe John is here too. So I don't know if you want. He is on Zoom as well.
And sorry, those are all the public comments. Okay, perfect. So you obviously heard your public comments that Christie had read. Is that correct? Sorry,
Yes, that's right.
sorry, Rose, if you want to just come up for a second. And just grab a seat there. So Christie has read into the record your comments that you've provided already to planning staff. So just knowing that we have heard your concerns, is there any additional information that hasn't been put in that document that you'd like to add?
So I wrote a page about how I feel about this, and it has affected me. I could read it. It'll take less than a minute. But would you like me to read it? It's a little different wording than what is in my official submission.
Yeah, if you'd like
It's
to.
my own personal experience and feelings. Or, if I'm allowed. If not, I will refrain.
So if there's any concerns, I will let you know, but by all means, this is your opportunity to speak to the application, and if there's any concerns that you want the committee to know about, this is your opportunity to speak to this matter. Just make sure your comments are civil. They're not personal in nature. So,
That's clear.
okay,
Thank you.
so go ahead.
So, I live 2 doors down, and for the last 2 years, the subject property has already proved to be a public nuisance property with dozens of police attendance and bylaw visits because of non-compliance issues and bylaw infractions. It has become unbearable to tolerate persistent, demonstrous, excruciating high noise levels that last for hours at a time, sometimes for up to 4 times a week. I have endured hours of illegal amplified pounding, excessive noise of electronic musical instruments, and someone singing through a magnified microphone with loudspeakers. It has become unbearable to enjoy my quality of life on my own property, causing me stress, anxiety, headaches, sleep deprivation, every single week for almost 2 years. The subject property has demonstrated a serious liability issue of public nuisance with a complete disregard to compliance of bylaws and any consideration of surrounding neighbors. And for these reasons, I ask that a variance not be granted. Thank you.
Thank you for those additional comments, and if you want to just grab a seat in the gallery, we'll continue on. And I believe there's somebody online that,
Yeah, I think there is John, and there might be one other online as well. I think it's our Susan, I believe it's, maybe we could just check to see if anyone online would like to speak to this application, if they could put up their hand. One moment, Chair, they're just turning on their cameras. Okay. If you would like to speak to this application, please turn your camera on. Hi, John. Would you like to say something in addition
Yes,
to your comments?
thank you very much. The letter I sent in pretty much covers the issue that I have. The addition, my concern is that the addition would make the necessity of the one gate that they have on the side of our property more necessary to be used. And I spoke to the owner the other day, who agreed that he would move it to the front. So I don't think that there's a problem as far as the blocking off of that gate and moving it to the front of the property. If that could be granted, then my concerns are resolved. I don't live next to this gentleman, so I can't speak to all the other issues that were raised, but my concern has been in the past that there was a fifth wheel trailer that was parked in the back of the property in the backyard. And the only way to bring that fifth wheel trailer back there was that he had to maneuver it onto our property and get it back there and get it out. And so I just don't want something like that continuing. And if that could be rectified, then I don't have an objection to his application.
Thank you very much, John. And was there somebody else wishing to speak to this application that's online? And John, if you want to just, you can mute yourself and take your video off now. That would be great. Thank you.
So there's one other person online with us today for this application, but I don't think she'd like to speak.
I did see a comment pop up saying somebody did not wish to speak. Was that the person?
One moment, the recording secretary will check, and she has confirmed that she does not wish to speak today.
Okay, so just the two. Okay, I will close the public portion. Actually, I will give you an opportunity to speak. You've obviously heard the comments. If you want to speak to some of those concerns, if you want to provide us with a bit of a presentation, that would be great.
Oh, thank you. What the owner, my client would like to do is expand his commercial space by installing a soundproof recording room. It's pretty obvious that, noise has been a factor in the area for the last year or two. So by taking a little bit away from his residential part to construct this room, we need to add something to keep him living there. The zoning bylaw, as you know, what being CT only allows a residential unit above the commercial unit. This building has been here since I was a kid, which is pretty much dating me now. And there's always been the residential part in the back. I took a look at it structurally, and it's pretty near impossible to build on top of this existing structure to add more living area. So in a nutshell, that's what my client likes to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And so I will close the public portion of the meeting and ask the committee members if they have any questions of the applicant. And just as a reminder, just throw your microphone on when you're wishing to speak. And Daniel, go ahead.
Thank you to the chair, to the planning department. Just talks about putting in a recording studio, and are there any guidelines as far as conditions that they have to meet at making the soundproof room so that the neighbors do not hear this anymore?
Through the chair, thank you for your question. So within the existing tourist commercial zone, a studio, that's essentially what is defined in the bylaw, is in fact permitted in this zone. There would be a definition in terms of what the studio entails within the definition section of the bylaw. But with regards to issues pertaining to nuisance or noise, that would be captured through other mechanisms, such as the property standards bylaw or other types of enforcement through the bylaw enforcement division of the municipality. So wouldn't be fully captured through the zoning bylaw per se. The zoning simply speaks to permitted uses.
Again, through the chair to the representative, soundproofing walls and things like that that you're proposing are standard in the industry. Is that what you're hoping to do, to make sure that the neighbors aren't affected in the future as they have been in the past?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Andy, go ahead.
A couple of things. So this existing property now is both a commercial and a residential?
Yes, sir, it is.
And what percentage of square footage is residential and what percentage is commercial?
I would say approximately 45-55, more on the residential side than it is on the commercial side.
Okay, so this addition is going to be, well, 10 by 20 makes it easy for me to make it 200 square feet. So that this addition is going to be 10 by 20, 10 by 12.
We're proposing a 12 by 18 approximately, so just under 200 and just over 200 square feet. And we'd like to expand the commercial part of it. Like it's all where the existing walls are and the existing structure is, to put that extra room inside and have it soundproofed. That room on the inside will be pretty much totally enclosed in the whole building. There'll be rooms all the way around it, so it'll kind of alleviate the effect of noise getting outside. It'll have to go through another room to actually get to the exterior walls.
So will it be a slab on grade and then walls up from there, or full foundation underneath?
The addition will be for the residential use of the property. So it'll be like a kitchen, dining room kind of area. And it'll be, well, as far as the footings go down, I think that building is only 3 block in the ground. So it'll be a crawl space, footings, foundation.
So this will be an additional part of the residential unit, but the soundproof, I'm getting these mixed up now. Is the soundproof place going to be in the commercial end, or is this the soundproof addition?
No, the soundproofing will be on the commercial end of the building, in the front of the building.
Okay, and just because we're here now talking about this, but
Sure.
Could this not have been done previously, or is this part of the deal to get the residential done?
No, he has been working on it, soundproofing some of the walls. He's got a little bit more to do, but he would like to expand the commercial use of it and install this soundproof room anyways.
Okay, so in your professional opinion as a designer, would it not have been better to do the soundproofing and get that done before we get to this state? And I'll only tell you my thoughts on it are that we're here now, but evidently there's some consumers, people of the public that are concerned about this, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but their main concern might be, in my opinion, is that this thing's getting larger, and is it going to add to the situation that they're living with now? That's all. So that's the reason I'm asking these questions about, is it going to improve it, or is it going to make it worse?
It will, in my opinion, improve it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Leo.
Through you, Mrs. Chair, I just would like to ask the applicant, so by approving this variance and allowing the addition in the residential portion, we're in fact enabling the expansion of the commercial space, which is the space that is disturbing the neighbors. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I know what you're asking.
Yeah, because on the surface, it appears to be simply a variance to expand the residential side, but that's really is going to enable the expansion of the area that seems to be subject to property standard-related matters, perhaps. I'm not aware of what the city's file is on the property, but based on the feedback from the area residents, it appears to be that the commercial aspect is what's causing the nuisance to the neighbors and not the residential part. Is that correct?
Well, I would believe so. However, you know, it is zoned as commercial tourism. Whether he pulls that studio out or does something else with it, you know, that's up to him. It's not my call. So I'm not quite sure I know what I don't know what you're asking.
And I don't personally have any objection to the fact that there is a recording studio there. Obviously, it needs to be built to industry guidelines for those types of uses.
Sure.
Notwithstanding, the building code is going to require specific sound transmission requirements between
Yes, it
the
does.
residential and the commercial portion, and assuming that this work is going to be undertaken through a building permit,
Yes.
then there will be some oversight and enforcement of sound transmission within the building itself, but the building code would not address sound that is generated beyond the building. So that's where the onus is on the property owner to sort of insulate, provide proper acoustical insulation to ensure that there isn't a negative impact, more of a negative impact to the neighbors. That's it, thank you.
We're addressing issues here that don't have anything to do with the application necessarily. But I would just, Ron, that, sorry. Pardon me? Hello? Is that better? I would just ask if you could convey to your client the concerns that have been raised today, that he takes that into consideration when he does his renovations and those type of things, because I think our responsibility is to address the application rather than the noise issues, which are bylaw issues and those type of things. But I think it's important if you could just convey those concerns to him and make sure that he's aware of them, and if he can address them as much as possible, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, I will.
And I'm not sure if this, I understand as a designer, Ron, that you're going to do the design of this, but I don't think we have any, I say we, this committee is just looking, this committee looks at the severance or the improvements, but I think it's more involved than that. And again, I have no idea when this commercial tourist building was designated and how that building was built and whether they had to go through sounds or whatever to be able to do what they're doing now. And I'm not sure whether there's a license involved. Each year they have to say, yes, we're going to do this. But I really do think that just my personal opinion is that I think we have to consider the surrounding neighborhood. And maybe that's not my place to say that or do that, but I really do think we have to concern ourselves with that as a corporation or as a town, not so much this committee itself. But I think there's been some good points brought up by both parties, and it certainly isn't a reflection. You're here representing the application, and I I understand that. But I really do think that there has to be some real thought given to give and take here. Because and one thing, not that I was ever in the music business, but this kind of stuff could go on at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock, doesn't matter. And I'm not sure whether that's a bylaw situation that has to say, you know, as of 10 o'clock on such and such, it has to go. I just want to be very aware and consider the surrounding neighborhood.
Well, I understand totally where you're coming from, sir. You know, the Committee of Adjustment is for how it's going to impact the neighborhood. All right, so, you know, I sat down with my client. He wants to basically get a soundproof recording room. That's what he wants. By doing that, I have to take something away from the residential part. And this is how we kind of come up to this agreement, you know, like, all right, so because we can't normally, because of its own ZT, you're supposed to have the residential up above, we have to expand out. That's the reason why I'm here. So, you know, keeping all this in mind when I'm designing this stuff, okay, so let's take this little bit of this, your residential area, which I thought, you know, you're gonna record it, you don't want outside noise interfering. That is the best room. This is the best area. You know, you still have to go through rooms to the outside to get anything, to get any noise going out or getting any noise coming in. So, sir, as you explained, and I'm well aware about the fire ratings and the sound transmission factors involved in this. Now, that's just minimum to code. Okay? I've already spoken with my client about adding actual more to it. Like, there's products out there that are just phenomenal. Like, I mean, real professional studios and equipment that he can get his hands on. The only thing is, it's the almighty dollar to put into this. Really, I have no more further questions.
So it sounds like there's certainly a noise issue. We've heard from the Rose, anyways, that there's been some issues with noise. Is it your opinion that this sound room, this non-residential recording studio, sorry, will kind of reduce those complaints? Are they currently just doing it in that part of the building where sound can disturb neighbors?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
So right now, are they like that? There's noise issues.
There are noise issues now, apparently.
And these noise issues, do you know where they're coming from? Is it just?
Well, the main part that I can see right now, like just off the top of my head, he's got two large pieces of glazing, pieces of glass right through there. He's got no coverings on top of that. All right, like you can whisper through a window and hear onto the outside. You know, if he were to put blankets up or do something like that to absorb that sound. The room that we're proposing to put in is, like I said, almost in the middle of the building, so it'll be almost impossible for the sound to get to the outside.
So right now, they're doing their recording like in that front of the building with the glasses?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And the proposal is like the addition that's being proposed is going to be at the back of the building?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So presumably noise is going to be reduced if right now they're playing at the front where the glass windows are, and now they're taking it to the back of the building with this recording studio with the soundproofing and stuff like that, correct?
Actually, it'll go to the middle of the building. The back of the building for the addition that he's asking for, what we're asking for is for the residential use of the property.
Okay. I understand, sorry about that. Okay, so I don't have any further questions other than that, so unless any of the other committee members have any follow-up questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just have a message to take back to your client, in that you seem to have suggested that there was a quick fix with those glass windows that had no coverings on them. And knowing that there was an application for minor variance on the property, and obviously there's been some neighbors that are not happy with some of the performance. I'm surprised you wouldn't have taken your advice and done something with that. Anyway, that's just a comment. This is outside the jurisdiction of the committee, but I just want you to take that back to the client, because that really does not give me any assurance that in fact the future acoustical requirements that you're suggesting will be put in place to protect the neighbors.
I understand your point, sir. Yep, and I will relay this to my client.
Okay, seeing no further comments from the committee members, I will then call the vote that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Ron Fleer on behalf of his client, and this is application number 11A0423 1048 Mosley Street for a minor variance. So all in favor, or do I have a mover? Sorry. Harold, seconded? Seconded? Leo, seconded? And all in favor? And that is carried. So that concludes the meeting. We've gone through all of the applications. You are free to go. The next meeting will be on May 17th, 2 o'clock here at Wasaga Beach Council Chambers. So I will adjourn the meeting today, 3:25 p.m. Thank you very much.